Hello and a huge welcome to this episode of Sketchbook Stories, and today I'm going to show you a page in an A4 sketchbook that I use primarily for sketching landscapes. So this book is a hardback sketchbook. It's a moleskin one with slightly off-white paper that I use for landscape sketching. So within stories, I'm telling the stories behind the sketches. So let's talk about this page here. Now this page here in the sketchbook was blank for a number of months, and it was actually blank but prepared with a gesso ground so that I could use paint or something, some sort of wet media over the top. Now I often prepare sketchbook pages like this in preparation for something. Like this one here has been prepped for months and months and months, and I just use a Liquid X clear gesso and I put a little bit of either a brown ink or an acrylic paint in it. This one here had a raw umber acrylic paint just mixed in with the gesso, and I just paint it on to put some colour on the page. And I would 100% say this is a fantastic tip for taking the fear out of the blank page. It's a way of just putting some colour on the page, because then you've got over that stage of making a mess, because you've already made a mess. Your first mark is just some paint and off-white colour. So within my sketchbooks, you'll often find that I have prepped a few pages like this ready to work on. It also means that should I decide to use acrylic paint or something that's a bit more likely to damage the pages of just an average cartridge paper sketchbook, the gesso protects the paper essentially. So that page was a gessoed piece of paper for many, many months. And then in January 2023, I went to visit the Cezanne exhibition at the Tate Modern in London. I absolutely loved it. There were some beautiful landscapes that were so inspiring, and I brought this catalogue home with me. And so what I decided to do was experiment with understanding how Cezanne painted his landscapes, but I just wanted to also explore a new medium that I bought. And this new medium were the Caran d'Ache Genève Neo Colour 2 Aquarelle pencils. It's a catchy name, but essentially they are crayons, but they are water-soluble. So they're wax crayons. You can just use them as crayons, but you can also apply water with a paintbrush to kind of make them into a paint-like texture. So these were new. I wanted to experiment and play with them, and so I decided that this was a wonderful opportunity for me to learn the marks that Cezanne made, to learn about studying landscapes in his manner, using his colour and looking at the brush strokes, but also for me to learn how to use this particular medium, as it's not one that I've used before. And so I opened up this sketchbook, and this page just kind of opened itself up to me. It was already coloured, and I think because I could see all this wonderful sort of ochre, mustardy, creamy colour underlying this painting, I just thought this page would be perfect for studying this. And so the aim was not to replicate exactly this. The aim was to be inspired by it. And I would certainly recommend, if you are learning, if you are sketching, to look at other artists, be inspired by them. Some of the biggest famous artists from the past are big and famous because they were masters of their art. They did something that has something inspiring or magical about what they do, their subject matter, their materials. So to look at what it is they do and how they do it can be a really instructive exercise as you're sketching, to help improve your technique, to understand how other people do it, but to also be inspired to kind of do it in your own way as well. So this is an oil on canvas, whereas this is crayon on paper. So it's a completely different medium. But what I was looking to do was to see if I could replicate some of these wonderful paint marks using these crayons. So applying this to the page, using a similar style. I suppose it's more scribbly, whereas the paintbrush marks are application of paint using a paintbrush, perhaps more considered than my little scribbles. And so I sort of drew it out. I think I used just a little bit of pencil first. I can't remember. Potentially I didn't. Potentially I might have just used the crayon to draw it out first. So what I quite like to do is to just very loosely plan out the major shapes. But what I was really looking at here were the marks and the colours, and how I could apply the marks and the colours to the page using these crayons. And you know, one of the wonderful things, but limiting things about a crayon set is that you've only got these colours. I haven't got any more. These are all the colours that I've got to work with, which are not going to match these colours here. Of course they're not. He didn't use these crayons, I did. So what I was trying to do was to find colours that were similar, but obviously different within this palette, and just make the marks. And I chose in the end not to apply water to it and not to merge the colours together, because I actually really enjoyed the mark making of the crayons themselves. So this is the sort of thing you could do with any sort of pastel or crayon to create that. Obviously, if you want to experiment and play with washes, you can blend some of this in, but I really liked being able to see that ochre raw umber background coming through. It gives the piece a wonderful warmth underneath. So these are the Caran d'Ache Genève Neocolor 2 aquarelle pencils, essentially wax crayons that you can mix with water. The background was the gesso, clear gesso, because it's got a bit of a texture, mixed with raw umber. And the inspiration was this one, catalogue number 26, the Françoise Zola Dame by Cezanne. That was the inspiration. And that's the sketchbook page. It's an A4 page. It was a wonderful study. I enjoyed it a lot. So in terms of yourselves, I would perhaps think about an artist that inspires you in terms of landscapes or any other subject matter, a material perhaps you haven't used yet or want to explore with, or even one you're comfortable with. It's your sketchbook, do what you want. And just have a go at studying somebody else's work in your own way in your sketchbook. It's a private study. You know, I'm not selling this piece. It's part of a sketchbook. A sketchbook is a wonderful way of exploring, experimenting, trying out new materials and techniques, because if it goes wrong or it doesn't go how you planned, tell you what, you can turn it over, go to the new page and start again. So have a lot of fun with looking at other artists, and that just tells you a little bit of the story behind this sketchbook page. I'll speak to you soon.